Hey, hi guys. In the previous video, we discussed about the importance of Docker in for a software developer. So I hope it is clear to you guys why we need to learn Docker if you are a front-end developer or a back-end or a DevOps, DevOps candidate. So now we are continuing this tutorial, and in this video we are going to learn about the difference between Docker and VM. So definitely whenever it comes right Docker, so there is always a question about VM, virtual machines, right? So I'll try to cover as much as possible about these two topics so that you would have a clear idea in which scenario we should go with Docker or a VM. Okay, so let's proceed. So we are going to learn about Docker versus VM. So now first we will discuss about virtual machine, how it works and how it looks like if we talk about its internal architecture, how it is working and what are the different components involved in this virtual machine, we will learn here. The first component is host hardware. So host hardware, if we talk about host hardware, it is RAM, CPU, storage devices. So those are hardwares, right? And those hardwares are part of your operating part of your physical machine. On top of that, there is another component, that is host OS. So in a system we will have hardwares, we will have softwares. So operating system is a software which allow users to communicate with hardwares. So by using softwares, and softwares understand instructs hardwares to perform a task, we achieve our goal, right? So this is the host operating system. On top of that, there will be a hypervisor. So this is also a software which allows you to install, or you can say install uh, virtual machines inside a machine, right? Let me go here. So if you see here guest OS, right? So in this hypervisor, due to this hypervisor, we have in all operating systems, right, we will have the hypervisors. And these hypervisors, as I said, right, it helps to run virtual machines inside a machine. So how it looks, so let me show you here. So now here you can see we have a guest OS. The first column is first virtual machine. Similarly, we have three virtual machines created here. Okay, and virtual machines will have guest operating systems, and operating system, it comes with its own binaries or libraries, and on top of that we will have an application right inside that virtual machine. So you can see this architecture, it's very clear, right? We have a host hardware and operating system, and on top of that we have a hypervisor which allows you to create virtual machines inside a machine. And with the help of this, you create multiple virtual machines with different operating systems. So after installing a virtual machine, or after creating a virtual machine inside a machine, how it looks like, let's see in the next slide. So let's see a scenario where we need to work on different operating systems, maybe Ubuntu, Linux, CentOS, Windows 10 and Windows 11. So in that case, you need to have six different machines with uh, physical hardwares. For example, if we are going with a CentOS, right? So there you need to have a separate CPU, RAM, hard disk, and other components, right? Similarly, for Ubuntu, you need to have a separate set of machine. So you need to have six set of machines to work on six operating systems. But if you are going with virtual machines, you can work on all of them inside one machine. Okay, so let me show you how it looks like. So when you create a virtual machine inside a machine, so that is how it looks like. This is the outer one is the host OS. You can take it as a maybe Linux or Windows, and inside that there are 6 virtual machines having different operating systems. So here, as for an example, we have Ubuntu, Linux, CentOS, Windows, Windows 10 and Windows 11. Okay, so within a system you are having 6 operating systems, and those are independent. Those will having their own RAM, CPU, you know, and storage as well, but those are virtual memories, but they are separated. One operating system storage will not be, you know, interfered by another operating systems. So that is where virtual machine works, right? So hypervisor takes care of the, you know, separation of virtual separation of storage or physical, you know, hardwares, so that we can have virtual machines and we can run them, all of them, in one machine. So I hope it's clear, right? So we have a we have a host machine, inside that we have 6 virtual machines. Now if we talk about Docker, so earlier we discussed about virtual machine, now we are talking about Docker. So how Docker is different from virtual machine? So in Docker, instead of hypervisor we have a Docker engine. Okay, and the only difference, but it's a great difference, it's a big difference between virtual machine and Docker, is Docker does not need guest operating system. Let's say you want to have you want to run a MySQL, right? So you don't need to install an operating system with all the binaries and libraries. So the only difference I could say, we are removing this guest OS. So now Docker engine, on Docker engine you will have different component containers running, and containers will have the required binaries or libraries for an application. So if MySQL needs, let's say 3 binaries or 10 binaries out of 100, so only 10 binaries will be available in this container, and that which makes it very lightweight. Okay, so now you can see, right, the difference is we have, instead of hypervisor we have a Docker engine, and we don't need of guest OS. Okay, so let's move ahead. Now when you followed this Docker approach, so inside a machine, right, you will have a Docker installed, and Docker is having a Docker engine which will take care of your containers. So what is containers? Containers are just an instance of your Docker image. Okay, so you can say like application instance. Okay, and don't worry about these terms, we will definitely discuss in upcoming videos. So as of now, focus on the core concepts. So I'm trying to explain the core concept here. So we have Docker engine, and in this Docker engine we have here different containers. These containers are like applications. Okay, so these containers are having binaries or libraries along with application. For example, MySQL, as I discussed, right, if I want to run a MySQL application, there whatever the binaries required, those required binaries are available inside this container. Similarly for other containers as well. So we have Docker engine. Docker engine will take care of these containers, and these containers will have the required libraries, which makes it lightweight process. So actually a container runs as a process which is very lightweight. Okay, and the most important part is, in case of virtual machine we need to install an operating system. Even though we don't need all the libraries or binaries of that operating system, we need to install them. Once the operating system is installed, then only we can run our application. So if I say like out of 100%, right, we are going to only use 2% of binaries, but still we need to install 98% of binaries, which is going to take a space, time, okay, and which makes it little slow compared to Docker, okay. But in case of Docker, we need if we need two binaries, so this container will have only two binaries. So that's why it is very lightweight compared to virtual machine, okay. So I hope it's clear here. Now let's summarize the difference between Docker and VM. So as I said, right, Docker is a lightweight process, whereas VM is a heavy process because it runs with a operating system, and operating system internally has many different processes up running, right. So that's why it's a heavy process. And if we talk about the startup time, right, so you can start a container within seconds. But if you talk about VMs, you need to create a machine, you need to install operating system on that, and then after you can install the application. And if you are good with the dependencies, then you will be able to run the application. If not, then again you need to resolve the dependencies, and then after application will be up and running. So overall it takes almost an hour to complete that process, whereas we can start a container within seconds from an image, right. If we talk about the size, Docker container comes size in MBs or maybe KBs, whereas VMs comes in GBs. Why? Because as I said, right, it will have the operating system. So in general, operating system size would be maybe 3 GB or 4 GB, right. So that's why the size will be greater. If you talk about shipping part, right, so in the Docker container we don't we ship the images, right, and images will be built at the server level. In case of VM, we create a virtual machine and we ship them to another operating system. There that virtual machine can be imported. So I mean, if you talk about the shipping part, then VM would be still not right choice, because there the size will be greater. You have to carry a GB of file from one system to another system, and then you need to import it. But in case of Docker, you just need to pull an image of maybe in KBs or MBs, and start the container, okay. Now if we talk about, I think we already discussed about the creation time taken by the Docker, right. We can create a Docker image or a Docker instance up and running within a minute, or you can say few seconds. But in case of VM, it takes almost an hour. As I said, right, you have to create a machine, provide all the configuration, then install the operating system, and then after you can go ahead and install the application. So that is about the summary and the difference between Docker and VM. So now let's go into the Docker lab, right. From the next upcoming videos, I'm going to discuss about how to create image, how to run them. But as of now, I will just show you one image running here. We have I will run one Nginx server for an example. So let me just clear this, and let me first check whether Nginx is available or not. So if I do docker image ls, so you can see only one image is available, and this is the image what we have created in the last video, okay. So let me run a container. So docker run -rm p 8080, and here we can mention like 80, and then we can mention here the image name Nginx. So I want to run a Nginx application on this 8084 host port, which will communicate with the container port, which is 80, and we will be able to access the application. So let me just re-verify the command docker here we should mention docker container run, we are mentioning the port, and that's it. Okay, so that image is not available in my local. Now it is going to download it from the, it is downloaded already. See how fast, right? I could say like less than 30 seconds after hitting the command. It took less than 30 seconds to bring the Nginx application ready for use. So you can see that it is available now. It's downloaded newer image for Nginx latest. It is downloaded and my application is up and running. So if you want to verify, we can go here and we can verify it, local host, and just hit enter. It's 8080. Yeah, so you can see that, right? So how fast it is. If you have to do the same thing in VM, as I said, right, you have to create a virtual machine, then you need to install an operating system. You have to choose, right? Maybe you can go with Windows or Linux or Fedora, CentOS, any operating system. Then after you will install the Nginx application web server, right? But here in Docker, you could see within 30 seconds I'm able to run the Nginx web server, right? So that is what the benefit we have with Docker. So that's all about this video. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please hit the like button and subscribe my channel, and let's meet in the next video. Thank you very much.